Nikki, can you hear me all right?
I can. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I've been looking forward to reconnecting with you all day. I love talking to amazing women, and I love cheese. So this is going to be this is going to be a fun, 45-minute hour discussion. I can't wait.
I can't wait either. I've been looking forward to this. I'm so excited to be here.
Awesome. I will start with some quick intros and then we can jump into our discussion. But for those of you who do not know myself or Nikki, my name is Nancy Winay and I lead advertising sales for Kroger Precision Marketing. And Nikki, I'm going to toss over to you, if you don't mind, to do a quick intro as well.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Nice to be here with you virtually today. I'm the marketing director of snacks at Sargento Foods.
Awesome. So, Nikki, I will just jump in, and I'd love for you to share just a little bit about yourself and your role, and what you do at Sargento.
Sure. So, like I mentioned earlier, I'm at Sargento Foods. I'm actually coming to you live today from Plymouth, Wisconsin, which, for those of you who don't know, it's the cheese capital of the world. Fun fact. And if anyone isn't familiar with Sargento, it's a third generation family owned company, and we're most known for bringing people together over real natural cheese. Um, you know, I love to talk about actually what attracted me to the company, and there were really three things that attracted me to this role. The first is, you know, as a company, I felt it was a really great balance of big and small. And I'm happy to talk a little bit about my background later, but I've had the opportunity to work on some really large brands and also some smaller startups, and this was a really great balance of both. Sargento is, it's a category leader. It's number one brand in real natural cheese, which meant it had the resources to make a meaningful change and a meaningful difference. But at the same time, we're a really lean organization. So I knew stepping into the role that I could make a meaningful impact. And then at the time that I was looking at this role, I was really trying to find a company that fit my personal values. And Sargento is a values based company, really focused on giving back to the community. In just the last 3 years, Sargento has actually donated 5 million pounds of cheese to food banks, which I think is a fantastic, a fantastic stride in values. And then the third reason was really focused on the people. And Sargento has had a long-standing belief of hiring the best people and treating them like family. And since I've been here, I've really, really found that to be true. I feel like I'm not working for a company. I feel like I'm working for a larger extended family. And actually, if anybody is interested in joining the Sargento family, we're actually hiring. We have some roles open right now, including some in marketing.
It's amazing. I love that you refer to, to a value-based company. You refer to it as family. I feel really similar about KPM as well. Kroger is a Midwestern company, has really strong Midwestern values. So I love hearing that's one of the key reasons why you joined Sargento. So that's great. That's fantastic. I also noticed that recently you guys launched Balance Break cheese and crackers. That is one of my favorite snacks, and also I have two teenagers. They also they also eat it on their way to school. So I'm just curious, what was your role in that launch, and yeah, what were you excited about with that launch?
So I am, first of all, I'm so excited to hear that you're a fan and that your family loves it. So that's amazing feedback. Love good reviews. But we are so excited about our new launch at Sargento Balance Breaks Cheese and Crackers. It's an amazing example to me of the power of co-branding. So it is, it's a new snack lineup. We launched this in partnership with Mondelez International, and it's really combining real natural cheese with cracker brands you know and love. And my role in the launch was about commercializing it for in-market success. So we already had a qualified concept, which was great. So I took this concept, then had an opportunity to identify who our consumer target was, and then partner with our agencies to find some really meaningful insights and create a catchy beatbox inspired campaign, which actually I believe that we have a video now. I think it's just more powerful to see it than to talk about it. So hopefully the video will work, but let's take a look.
Oh, great.
Cheese, crackers, Sargento, yum, perfectly sized. Cheese and Ritz, cheese and Triscuit, cheese and Muffins. Cheese, real natural cheese. Now with your favorite crackers.
Sargento.
We're real cheese people.
I love it.
So that was that was a really fun one to work on. A lot of energy, like I said, very beatbox inspired. We did a lot of snackable content, and it's actually led to some pretty unbelievable results. It's actually on track right now to be the biggest innovation launch in our company's 68-year history. So we're really proud of this one.
Congratulations. That's awesome. It's amazing. I that's actually the first time I've seen the spot, but now I know especially why my son, he plays drums, why he loves it. Yeah, he loves eating. Yeah, it has all come together for me now that I've seen the spot. That's fantastic. That's awesome. I was doing a little background reading as we've been getting to know one another. And I just think it's so impressive, Nikki, that you were recognized as top 25 brand builder for 40 under 40. That is really impressive. And I'd love for you to chat just a little bit about your career path. And you and I chatted earlier. I love that you have a non-linear career path. To me, when we started talking about that earlier, it just shows that, you've taken some really big risk and you've done some really interesting things. So it'd be great, I think, for others who have joined us just to understand how did you get to where you are and what drove you to make those decisions?
Yeah, Nancy, first of all, I love that you're describing my career as nonlinear because that is absolutely that is absolutely the truth. I have had a very colorful career, to say the least. I actually started my career as an in-store demo girl. So I was demoing products like Febreze and Swiffer in store, and that was in college. And then after undergrad, I did some things that weren't CPG related. I worked in visual merchandising. I had a talent agency for a while and worked on reality TV show casting for shows like American Idol and The Apprentice, and did a brief stint as a political strategist. Now that was all just before going back to B school. So even the start of my career was very colorful, but everything post B school has been CPG related. So I did an internship at Build-A-Bear Workshop, and then went to Cincinnati to work at Procter & Gamble. So I had the opportunity to work in coffee, to work in hair care, to launch the Crest 3D White mega property, which became their first billion-dollar mega property as a company. And after that, I moved to the East Coast, changed locations for a bit, and had the opportunity to work at Church & Dwight and lead innovation for their fabric care business unit, which was their number one business unit. And then also led skincare innovation for L'Oreal, which is number one beauty company. Now, at that time, I was then expecting my daughter. And, I needed to kind of reevaluate where I was in my career. And I needed a shift at that time, and I needed a change. And I decided at that time to just step away from the client side for a while and go to the vendor side. And I ran my own innovation consulting shop after my daughter was first born. But then, later went back into CPG to run personal care marketing at Reckitt for a portfolio of 6 brands. And then about a year and a half ago, I made the move back to the Midwest, which is where I'm originally from. And I'm here at Sargento. So as you can see, like you said, it's very nonlinear. There's a lot of twists and turns, a lot of color to it, but I feel very fortunate that I've had all of these experiences and I've been able to connect all the dots, because in total, I've now worked on somewhere between 30 and 40 different consumer brands.
That's fantastic. I love that. To me, it just, change drives so much innovation. It drives just, internal perspective and just internal perspective and acceptance of others. And it also just kind of personally, in my experience, it kind of pushes you in ways that are so positive that you never would have expected had you not taken the risk. So super impressive. I love that. Um, do you have any secrets to success that you could share along the way, some learnings that just stand out for you as you've developed your career over time?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. I've been reflecting on this one a bit, and I'm not sure that I have necessarily a mantra, but I do have just, I guess, a general way I approach life and just a general mindset, because I believe in seeing things not just as they are, but as they could be. And it's a mindset that actually started when I was a child, and something that's, it's carried through my career. And I can give two quick examples from my childhood on this one. So first, just, at the age of 3, at the young age of 3, I remember telling my parents that for every gift they were going to give me, if it was for Christmas or for a birthday, I wanted them to get me a Barbie. Not because I wanted to play with it, but because I thought one day it would be a collectible and it would be worth something. So even at the age of 3, I'm seeing a toy not just as a toy, but as an investment. And then later, I remember a story when I was in first grade, a story about some backyard garden vegetables. And I remember going to the garden in my parents' backyard and picking some tomatoes, putting them in a basket for my bike, riding my bike to the back door, ringing the doorbell of their back door, and then selling their own tomatoes to them for $1 each. And of course, they thought this was completely outrageous at the time, because it was their own garden. But I explained to them the charge wasn't for the tomatoes; it was for the delivery service. So even then, I was seeing this added value with door-to-door delivery, and it's this same kind of reimagining, forward-looking mindset that I had when I was a child, that I've applied to my career to help reimagine some of the most well-known, best-loved consumer brands. It's helped me revamp brand positioning, modernize marketing models, develop new products, and reshape some category norms. And again, it just all comes down to reimagining and seeing these possibilities.
Yeah, I think that we're going deep today, Nikki. Like we're. I love that you've gone back to your childhood to really kind of think about like what's driving you and what's driving you to take these risks, right? And to try on not just new jobs, but whole new industries and new careers. I think it's really interesting for all women, because we do tend to really sort of reflect on what's driving us and why we're doing it. And we're influenced by so many things in our household, especially our partners and our children along the way. So it's interesting to me that you won the term reimagining, like now I'm reimagining, like it requires curiosity. And also I like to use the term superpower, that superpower ability to kind of look around the corner. And yeah, that's a great gift to have. And it's really forward thinking. So
I love that you call it a superpower.
it's completely a superpower for sure. And you and I are going to have to talk again after this, because after the tomato story, there's a lot of people on Kroger pickup and delivery who I know are going to be like, I need to talk to Nikki. So
Happy to continue the conversation.
That is so great. So I do have some questions just around how you're dealing with the last 2 years. I don't know if you had it. I tuned in for a couple minutes on the last Women in Marketing conversation, and that was very interesting, how they were talking about how they were coping through the pandemic. I personally have found it really challenging. I've been with KPM for the last 20 months, and for a majority of time, I've been working from home. And as all of us know, it's not easy, but there have been some really positive things that have come out of it. And I was just curious to know what have you learned? What have you found that's been helpful? For women, for yourself, just over the last 2 years during the pandemic.
Well, I think the pandemic has had such a disruptive and deep impact on so many of us. I know for me personally, I have had some huge challenges that I've had to work through, especially at the beginning of the pandemic. So I mentioned when I was talking about my career journey that I had moved to Sargento about a year and a half ago. So this was right at the onset of the pandemic. I had made the move from New Jersey to Wisconsin. So I had just moved to a new town, was working at a new company, new category, new brand, had a brand new team, which, by the way, I had a chance to meet a few of them face to face before we started working remotely. But similar to you, Nancy, the majority of my team, I hadn't had a chance to meet. And I only got to know them virtually. So I was sitting at home doing all these virtual meetings. And at the same time, I also have a 6-year-old daughter who moved at the same time and wasn't able to start school. So I'm juggling virtual meetings and juggling virtual school for my 6-year-old daughter. And, I think similar to one of the themes talked in the last presentation, empathy. It was a huge, huge takeaway for me is that, it's really important to lead with empathy. We are all experiencing change right now, our teams, our consumers, and we just, it's a time to be empathetic to the new dynamics. And I know from a company standpoint, a lot of companies are trying to figure out what it means to adjust to these new dynamics. From a Sargento standpoint, we've really focused on making strides in two areas. The first is mental health, and then the second is flexibility. And from a mental health standpoint, we are trying to make sure that there are more mental health resources available for employees. And then from a flexibility standpoint, we've actually gone to a core hours program. So essentially, we're doing meeting times from 8 to 4 Monday through Thursday, and then 8 to 12 on Friday. So it's kind of like summer hours, but for the full year. And then on Mondays and Fridays, we have the option of either coming in the office or working from home. So, it's really great to have that flexibility. And I think just with these new dynamics, it's really essential.
Yeah, I agree. You and I talked a little bit before just about empathy, and we just, um, we really need it on all levels, right? As we've been juggling, and we continue to juggle as this continues. I've learned a lot of empathy actually just through my own team as well. My children are teenagers; they're older. They've had the benefit when they've been at home, as part of this new role. They've been pretty self-sufficient, but I've watched so many women on my team who are, feeding babies and juggling naps and, juggling the role. And it's just been so impressive. It's been so impressive and also just so personally inspiring that I just, I look at empathy and relationships and work completely different and in a good way compared to pre-pandemic. So I love empathy, and similar to, we're doing flexible working hours, and mental health is at the front and foremost. Just making sure that women are taking care of themselves and thinking about themselves first during this time. So
I love to hear that. I think it's really critical.
that makes a ton of sense. Will you share a little bit about people who have inspired you along the way, whether it's people at work or also just, it could be family, it could be other coworkers, but love to understand just like who has helped you stay motivated, over the past couple years.
Well, I would say from an inspiration standpoint, I feel in my career I've been pretty fortunate to have a lot of strong female role models and females to look up to. Um, I keep going early back, early back in life, but I think early in my life that started with my mom. She really believed in the power of education. She was the first in our family to go to college, and I think that helped me reframe how I thought about myself and some of my goals. And a little bit later in my career, the inspiration came from colleagues and from business leaders. Early at P&G, we did have a formal mentor program, and I thought that was very helpful. But in addition to that, I sought advice from female leaders in the company. And one of them was Emily Chang, who at the time was our sponsor for the Women in Marketing Network at P&G. And she later went on to be CMO of Starbucks in China and is now CEO of McCann in China. And then the other female leader that I looked up to at the time and sought advice from was Fama Francisco, and she became the first Asian female president at P&G. So to me, they both embody this essence of hard work and of drive, but at the same time, they helped me understand the importance of personal storytelling and also just having the courage to, to carve out your own legacy. And then, more recently, I would say in the last 2 years, a lot of my women in marketing networks have served as my support system. And that's been really critical for the last 2 years.
That's great. It really sounds like you've surrounded yourself with some strong women, and I love the women that you just named off at P&G. P&G built such great leaders. So it was great to hear those names again as well. My next question was one I added myself, actually, Nikki. So this is one that's just near and dear to myself, because I ask myself this all the time, and especially as I'm thinking about how do I influence my daughter in positive ways. I think about what would I have done differently if I could go back. So I tossed this one in, and I just I'm excited to hear your answer. So what would you do differently, or what would you tell yourself to do differently if you could talk to your younger self?
Time travel. Wouldn't that be wonderful?
I know.
I think that the idea of changing something in the past, I think this one is a tough one for me, to be honest, because I do believe experiences, for better or for worse, make us who we are. So I don't know if I would necessarily go back and change anything and do anything differently. However, if I had to go back and give my younger self some advice, I think there are probably 3 things that I would say. So the first is I would just encourage myself to have fun. As basic as that sounds.
That's not
have
basic.
Fun and go after things that you're passionate about. I remember early in my career being told what assignments I should take and what I shouldn't take. But to me, I've kind of learned through my career journey that if you are really passionate about something, regardless of how big or small the opportunity is, you will find a way to make it your own and really excel. So that would be the first piece of advice. And then the second piece of advice would be about finding a good work family. So when I think about the amount of time we all spend at work, we end up spending more time with the people we work with than usually our own families at home. So it's really, really key to find a work family and a culture that is a good fit. And then the third piece of advice, this is kind of a fun one, and I would say a throwback again to earlier in my life, but I would just say to not give up on goals when times get tough. And this can be a really tricky one. But I remember when I was younger, my dad, when times would get tough, he would say, in his kind of Midwestern way, he would say, "Are you tough as a pine knot or are you weak as a willow?" So, it was a choice. It was a choice I was making.
Mhm.
But I think this was kind of his tough love way of saying, if something was really, really important to me and meaningful to me, that I shouldn't get discouraged when times, got tough. Instead, I should just really stay strong and stay focused on what mattered to me.
I think I love those answers so much because I think passion, when you follow your passion, and I tell my daughter this all the time, the material things will follow, right? As long as you're doing something you love, people around you notice, and your teams and your coworkers want to work with you and want to engage with you if and they can tell that you love what you're doing. So I love that you started with passion. That is probably the number one thing that I tell my own kids, and I think that's fantastic. The other thing that you said that just struck also kind of a way back memory as well is that I was doing this interview with my mother years ago, as kind of a time capsule for my family later in life. And I asked her if she had a mantra, and her mantra was, and it took her a few minutes, and then she said, "I guess it's just one foot in front of the other," which is similar, I think, to just the idea too. Of course, just don't give up. It's very simple, right, in a good way in terms of, but I do think it's there are a lot of options, and sometimes the easier path, right, is to just say I can't do this, or to shift careers or to try something new. Especially, we see a ton of attrition right now. We see a lot of people changing jobs, and some of that is fantastic and great and has helped women re-enter the workforce, and I love that. But it's also, I think, important, um, going back to one foot in front of the others, are your dad's example too. It's just, in hard times, I think it's important to stay the course. And there are a lot of things that we're doing, I think, in manufacturing and in the grocery business that are important to helping people feed their families. So um, I love your response. I think that's fantastic. It sounds like you're at the right place, in terms of going back to how you and I just started, right? Just family first, family values, and staying the course. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, sometimes the most important or meaningful path isn't the easiest path. And I think sometimes we forget that. Um, but if it's really meaningful for you, if it's important to you, just really important to stay focused.
Yes. Yeah. I keep mentioning my daughter, but obviously with our theme, women in marketing, I don't mean to leave my son out, but my daughter's first name is Riley, and she's at age 15. She doesn't call me mom, by the way. She calls me girl. She'll say, "Hey, girl." So at some point, I need to put that in there, because Nikki, I'm gonna be like, "Girl, you're right." So, but you're right.
I
I
love
totally
it.
agree. So, just a couple more questions, and then I think we'll do a little bit of Q&A with the folks who are listening. But we should talk a little bit about customer behavior. There's been a huge shift. I mean, we're all aware that the pandemic has fast-tracked customer behavior, and customers are shopping online like never before. There's a lot of other positive trends too, and I'm just curious as to either which positive trends are you seeing the most in your industry, or even personally, which positive trends coming out of the pandemic do you think are going to stick? Just talk to me a little bit about, from a customer perspective, what you're seeing.
Yeah, well, I think the pandemic has definitely caused us all to rethink things in our lives, to rethink our purpose, our values, our choices. And I would just say consumers are going through that same journey and rethinking some of their choices. Um, we have definitely seen consumers make the shift to e-com. And I remember reading a stat sometime at the very beginning of the pandemic that e-com grew essentially 4 years in 4 weeks, which stuck with me. It's so meaningful. And now I think some of that has maybe started to normalize a little bit, but I do think it's still going to continue to be a lasting and impactful behavior. And the other kind of sticking trend that I see is a focus on consumer well-being. I think that's going to continue to be at the forefront of all decisions, whether it's self-care, physical health, mental health. When you think about consumer behavior, and you think about it before the pandemic, a lot of decisions were driven by FOMO, fear of missing out. But now we are seeing a swing the other way, on the other end of the spectrum, that consumers are now gravitating more toward JOMO, joy of missing out, that they are actually making this choice instead to, now focus on their version of happiness and on what really matters to them. And often that's taking time to reflect, reconnect, recharge, and often with family.
Okay, I have to ask, did you just create JOMO? Is that a real thing? And I'm just not
It's
aware
a
of it.
real thing. I didn't just make it up, I promise. You can Google it afterwards. JOMO, joy of missing out.
Okay, because I'm completely not cool, and I have not heard JOMO, but yeah, I think you're spot on, right? Like that is we've all embraced, and really looked for the good coming out of the pandemic, and the balance, work-life balance, and the re-engagement with family, and all the important things in life, we want to keep, right? And so makes a ton of sense. My last question is just really about just advice, before we go into Q&A. Do you have any advice for future leaders, just to close us out?
Advice to future leaders. Well, I would say, another belief I have is that to be an inspiration to others, you yourself have to first be inspired. And for me, I have always been most inspired by real life industry examples. So, similar to how this live cast is for marketers by marketers, I always love attending marketing events and hearing directly from the brands who experienced something firsthand, and the people that led those experiences, because I feel that those are really the richest stories for learning. So, for the future generation or the next generation of female leaders, I would just encourage everyone to learn from the stories of those who have gone before you, but also to find your own voice and to use your own voice to tell your own stories to others. Because for me, that is the way that we can continue to be connected, support each other, inspire each other, and really continue to see more possibilities.
Awesome. That is a great way to close this out. Thank you. We have one question in the chat, and hopefully a few more will come in. But this person asked us, how do you recommend starting the conversation with women leaders in your organization to seek career advice? That is, I love that question, actually, because sometimes approaching a mentor is the hardest thing, right? It's like a term paper. Getting started is the hardest part. So yeah, what's your advice in terms of how should young women approach a potential mentor?
If there is a formal mentor program, I would suggest signing up immediately and being part of that, because formal mentor programs will essentially be a matchmaker for you, and they will take a look at your profile and they will match you to someone in the company, and they do all of that for you. So it's facilitated and you don't have to worry about breaking the ice. In the examples I gave about Emily and Fama, they were role models for me. And so they were within my organization. They were aspirational. I looked up to them, but they were also accessible. So I had a point where I could already connect with them. So for Emily, she was already involved with the P&G Marketing Women Network as our sponsor. So that gave me a quick in to have a conversation with her. And the same with Fama. I had a mutual connection who was able to connect us. So if you don't have direct access to a top leader in your organization, I would leverage someone who could connect you and work through them.
Great advice. Love that advice. I do not see any more questions in the chat. So I think that is a wrap. Nikki, thank you. This was a blast. I really, as always, I enjoyed connecting with you. So thank you so much for making the time.